Subscribe to Storylab. Now, let's begin this one. The Texas sun beat down on the dusty highway as Mitchell Freeman pulled his truck into the driveway of his modest ranch house outside San Angelo. 3 months overseas, 3 months of hunting high-value targets in mountains where maps didn't matter and mercy was a luxury, had left him hollow. But he was home now, and his daughter Paige would be waiting. She wasn't. The house stood quiet, blinds drawn despite the afternoon light. Mitchell's instincts, honed over 22 years as an Army Ranger, screamed warning before his conscious mind registered the wrongness. The front door hung slightly ajar. Paige never left it open. Not with the air conditioning running, not with her laptop and textbooks scattered across the living room. He drew his sidearm without thinking, muscle memory taking over as he cleared each room with practiced efficiency. Kitchen empty. Living room untouched except for her organic chemistry textbook lying face down on the coffee table. Her bedroom door stood open, bed made, everything in place. Too perfect. Paige was a brilliant 19-year-old pre-med student at Angelo State, but housekeeping wasn't her strength. Mitchell's phone buzzed in his pocket. Unknown number. He answered with silence. Major Freeman. The voice was smooth, accented, Mexican but educated. Or should I call you Mitchell? We've become quite familiar with your family. Ice flooded his veins. Who is this? Check your Facebook. Your daughter wanted to say hello. The line went dead. Mitchell's hands shook as he opened the app. 57 notifications. Messages from friends, former teammates, his sister in Colorado. All variations of the same horror. His feed loaded slowly, and there at the top was a live video tag with his name. The thumbnail showed a wooden chair in a concrete room. In the chair sat Paige, bound and gagged, her auburn hair matted against her tear-streaked face. Her blue eyes, identical to her mother's, the mother who died of cancer when Paige was 12, stared directly at the camera with a mix of terror and defiance. Mitchell's finger hovered over the play button. Every instinct told him not to watch, to preserve the memory of his daughter as she'd been when he deployed, laughing on the phone about her latest lab experiment, complaining about her roommate's boyfriend, planning their fishing trip for when he returned. He pressed play. The video was 15 minutes old. 7,000 viewers had already watched. The first 3 minutes showed nothing but Paige struggling against her bonds while off-camera voices spoke in Spanish. Mitchell understood every word. They were debating whether to start with her fingers or her toes. Then a man stepped into frame. Early 30s, muscular, wearing a white tank top and expensive gold chains. His face was uncovered, confident, even smiling. This message is for the American military dogs who think they can operate in our territory. This message is for Mitchell Freeman, who killed my brother in Kandahar. We don't forget. We don't forgive. The man produced a red gasoline can. Mitchell couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't look away as they doused his daughter in fuel. Paige's eyes found the camera one last time, and he saw her mouth move behind the gag. He'd taught her to read lips when she was 8, a game they played during her mother's chemo treatments. Now he watched her form 3 words, I love you. The match dropped. The video lasted another 4 minutes and 32 seconds. Mitchell watched every second, forcing himself to witness what he couldn't prevent, burning each detail into his memory. The man with the gold chains laughed throughout. Another man, older, gray-haired, appeared briefly to pour more gasoline. A third operated the camera, occasionally offering commentary. When it ended, Mitchell sat motionless on his daughter's bed, the phone still glowing in his hand. The video had been shared 843 times. Comments flooded in. Half were from Cartel sympathizers celebrating, half from horrified strangers offering prayers that came too late. The doorbell rang. Mitchell moved on autopilot, tucking his weapon into his waistband as he descended the stairs. Through the peephole, he saw Tom Simmons, the county sheriff, standing on his porch with his hands in his pockets and his signature Stetson pulled low. They'd known each other for years. Simmons had been at the hospital when Sarah died, had attended Paige's high school graduation. Mitchell opened the door. Simmons wouldn't meet his eyes. Mitchell, I'm sorry. I came as soon as I heard. Where is she? Mitchell's voice came out flat, emotionless. We're looking. Got alerts out to every. Where's her body? Simmons flinched. We don't know yet. The video was uploaded from a VPN. Can't trace it. My deputies are checking abandoned buildings, but... He trailed off, finally raising his eyes to Mitchell's. What Mitchell saw there turned his grief into something colder, harder. You know who did this? It wasn't a question. Simmons' jaw tightened. Mitchell, you need to let us handle. You know who did this? Mitchell repeated, stepping closer. I can see it on your face. Give me names. The sheriff backed up a step. I can't. Even if I could, you need to stand down. These people, they're connected. They're connected to what, Tom? Connected to whom? Simmons' hand drifted toward his service weapon. The gesture wasn't lost on Mitchell. You need to let the proper authorities handle this. That's all I'm saying. The proper authorities. Mitchell laughed, a sound devoid of humor. The proper authorities who let my daughter get kidnapped from her campus apartment 3 days ago. The proper authorities who didn't issue an Amber Alert. The proper authorities who are standing on my porch right now, more worried about protecting murderers than finding justice. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Tom? Tell me. Simmons' face reddened. You think I don't want these bastards caught? You think I don't have nightmares about what they did? But there are realities here you don't understand. These cartels, they've got roots everywhere. They've got money, lawyers, politicians. You go after them. They'll kill everyone you've ever met. Your sister in Denver, your nieces, every single person at Sarah's funeral. That's how they operate. So you're telling me to do nothing. I'm telling you that some fights can be won. Simmons met his gaze squarely now, and Mitchell saw something else beneath the fear. Resignation, maybe even a hint of shame. I'm telling you that if you pursue this, you'll end up dead or in prison, and your daughter's death will have meant nothing. Mitchell let the silence stretch for 5 seconds. 10. Then he spoke very quietly. Get off my property. Mitchell, get off my property. The sheriff retreated to his cruiser, pausing with his hand on the door. They pay me, Mitchell. The Stevens cartel pays me $50,000 a month to look the other way. I've got 2 daughters in college, a mortgage, and a pension that won't cover shit. I'm not proud of it, but that's the reality. You come after them, I can't protect you. I won't protect you. Mitchell said nothing as the cruiser pulled away. He'd gotten what he needed, a name and a confession. The Stevens cartel. Antonio Stevens, probably, given the accent on the phone. And Tom Simmons had just painted a target on his own back. Inside, Mitchell opened his laptop and began searching. The Stevens cartel wasn't hard to find once you knew where to look. They'd originated in Sinaloa, but expanded operations into Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona over the past decade. 89 confirmed members according to DEA intelligence reports he accessed through channels that would get him court-martialed if anyone checked. Specializing in methamphetamine production and distribution, with side ventures into human trafficking and arms dealing. Antonio Stevens ran the organization after his older brother, Carlos, was killed by a drone strike in Afghanistan. Carlos had been an arms dealer supplying Taliban insurgents. Mitchell had been on the ground team that painted the target. He remembered the compound, the heat, the satisfying bloom of fire as the missile found its mark. He'd never known Carlos had a brother, had never imagined that war would follow him home. But it had. And now Page was dead because Mitchell had done his job. His phone rang. The caller ID showed Colonel Summers, Ron Summers, his commanding officer at Fort Benning, a man he'd served under for 8 years across 3 combat zones. Sir, Mitchell. Summers' gravelly voice carried the weight of bad news delivered too many times. I saw the video. The whole damn world saw it. I'm putting you on emergency leave effective immediately. Sir, I need to be back on base. I need to be working. No. What you need is time to grieve and time to bury your daughter once we find her. That's an order. Mitchell closed his eyes. They're not going to find her, sir. Not unless I make them. A long pause. Then Summers spoke in a different tone. Not the colonel addressing his major, but one soldier speaking to another. You have 60 days of leave. What you do with that time is your business. But Mitchell, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, you need to be smart. You need to be careful. And you need to make sure that whatever happens, it can't be traced back to the army. I understand, sir. Do you? Because I'm not talking about arresting these people. I'm not talking about gathering evidence for a trial. I'm talking about making sure they disappear permanently. All of them. Can you do that? Mitchell thought about Paige's eyes in that video. About her last words. About Tom Simmons standing on his porch, confessing to corruption while his daughter's killers walked free. Yes, sir. Then you'll need your team. I've already made some calls. Hugo Fowler just finished up in South Korea. Kelvin Parsons is stateside for the first time in 2 years. Eric Shields is teaching at the intelligence school, but he'll get reassigned. Ronnie is recovering from a knee surgery. He'll be cleared for light duty. And Dwayne Kennedy is rotating back from Germany next week. Mitchell felt something crack in his chest. Summers was offering him his old team, 5 of the most lethal soldiers he'd ever worked with. Men he'd trust with his life. Men who'd already proven they'd walk through fire for him. Sir, I can't ask them to. You're not asking. I'm telling. These boys already know what happened. Fowler called me 3 hours ago asking for your address. I told him to hold position until I cleared it with you. Summers paused. Mitchell, what those bastards did to Paige, that's an act of war. The army takes care of its own. We can't do it officially, but unofficially? You've got 60 days and every resource I can provide without getting myself court-martialed. Make it count. I will, sir. And Mitchell, Tom Simmons is dirty. My sources confirm he's been on the cartel payroll for at least 3 years. Whatever you're planning, start with him. He knows where they operate, where they hide, who's who in their organization. Make him tell you everything. How do you suggest I do that, sir? Summers' laugh was dark. You're a ranger, Major. Figure it out. Just make sure it looks like an accident. The line went dead. Mitchell sat in the gathering darkness of his living room, his daughter's chemistry textbook still open on the coffee table. She'd been studying enzyme kinetics, the page marked with a photo of the two of them fishing at Lake Nassworthy last summer. Paige holding up a base, grinning, her whole life ahead of her. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a group text from Hugo Fowler. We're coming. Don't do anything stupid until we get there. Followed by Kelvin Parsons, already booked a flight. Landing in San Antonio tomorrow at 0800. Eric Shields, I've got access to satellite feeds and dark web monitoring. Send me coordinates and I'll start building target profiles. Ronnie knee's fine. Can still shoot. Can still fight. Point me at them. Dwayne Kennedy, just heard. I'm so sorry, Mitch. I'm on a transport leaving Ramstein in 4 hours. I'll be wheels down at Fort Hood by morning. Mitchell read the messages twice, then a third time. These men didn't ask questions. They didn't need explanations. They knew what had to be done, and they were coming to help him do it. He stood and walked to his bedroom, opening the safe hidden behind a false panel in his closet. Inside was everything he'd need. Cash, fake IDs, weapons, and a black notebook containing detailed intelligence on cartel operations he compiled over the years. The army had taught him to prepare for every contingency. He'd never imagined this one, but he was prepared nonetheless. His computer chimed with an incoming email. The sender was listed as E.G. He didn't recognize it until he opened the message and saw the signature. Eileen Greenwood, his next-door neighbor, a retired schoolteacher who'd helped watch Paige when she was younger. Mitchell, I saw the police at your house earlier, and I saw that awful video. I'm so sorry. I don't know if this matters, but 3 nights ago, I couldn't sleep, and I was looking out my window around 2 a.m. I saw a black SUV parked outside your house. 2 men got out and looked around, then left. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now, I have a license plate number. I wrote it down because it seemed odd. Should I give this to the police? Mitchell replied immediately, Mrs. Greenwood, please don't contact the police. Email me that license plate number. And thank you. Her response came within seconds. Texas plates. TYK 9847. The SUV had tinted windows and a dent on the rear bumper. I hope this helps. It did. Mitchell ran the plates through a military database, another thing that could get him in trouble, but that ship had sailed. The SUV was registered to a shell corporation that, after 6 layers of dummy companies, traced back to a warehouse in El Paso owned by the Stevens cartel. He had his first target. But first, He needed to deal with Tom Simmons. The sheriff knew too much and could warn the cartel that someone was coming. He needed to be silenced before Mitchell's team arrived. It needed to look natural, accidental, completely unrelated to Page's murder. Mitchell opened his notebook to a blank page and began planning. Simmons lived alone on a ranch 15 miles outside town. Divorced, no kids at home anymore. He drove the same route every day, home to office to home. He stopped at the same diner every morning for coffee. He kept a bottle of bourbon in his desk drawer and started drinking around 4 p.m. when he thought no one was watching. And according to county records, his house had old wiring, the kind that caused fires. The kind of fire that might trap a man who'd had too much to drink. Mitchell checked his watch. 9:47 p.m. Simmons would be drunk by now, probably passed out in his recliner watching television. His security system was basic. Mitchell had helped install it 5 years ago when they were still friends. He knew the bypass codes. This needed to happen tonight before his team arrived and got implicated. Whatever came next, whatever war he was about to wage, it started with making sure the traitor couldn't warn the enemy. Mitchell changed into dark clothes, grabbed a small toolkit, and headed for the garage. His truck would stay home. This was walking distance if you knew the right trails. The moon hung low and red over West Texas as he set out into the darkness. The Simmons ranch was dark except for the flickering blue glow of a television in the living room. Mitchell approached from the back, moving through the scrub brush like a shadow. No dogs. Simmons had gotten rid of his German Shepherd after the divorce. No cameras on this side of the property. The man had gotten lazy, comfortable in his corruption. That would be his last mistake. Mitchell checked the windows. Simmons sat in his recliner, an empty bourbon bottle on the table beside him, head lolled back, snoring. The television played an old western, the sound loud enough to cover any noise Mitchell might make. The back door was locked, but the lock was cheap. Mitchell had it open in 30 seconds. Inside, the house smelled of stale alcohol, unwashed dishes, and defeat. This wasn't the home of a man at peace with his choices. He moved to the electrical panel in the utility room. Old wiring, just as he'd remembered. He pulled out wire cutters and began to work, carefully fraying several connections, creating shorts that would spark but not trip the breaker. Then he moved to the kitchen, turning on the gas stove without lighting it, letting the smell fill the room. This was the tricky part. It needed to look like Simmons had drunkenly turned on the stove, maybe trying to make food, then forgot about it. The electrical short would provide the ignition source. The whole place would go up fast with all this old wood and those newspapers Simmons hoarded. Mitchell was about to turn back toward the door when Simmons appeared in the kitchen doorway, swaying on his feet, a revolver in his hand. "I knew you'd come," the sheriff slurred. "Knew you wouldn't listen." Mitchell raised his hands slowly. "Tom, put the gun down. Can't do that. You're going to kill me. I can see it in your eyes." Simmons steadied himself against the doorframe. "But I can't let you start this war. Too many people will die. Too many people." Mitchell's voice was ice. "My daughter died. She burned alive while 7,000 people watched. And you did nothing." "I couldn't." Simmons' voice cracked. "They would have killed my girls. They showed me pictures of them at their colleges, told me they knew their schedules, their dorm rooms. What was I supposed to do? Your job." "My job." Simmons laughed bitterly. "My job pays $48,000 a year. The cartel pays more than that in a month. My pension is a joke. My ex-wife took half of everything. I made a choice, maybe the wrong choice, but I made it. And I've been living with it every day since. Now you won't have to." Mitchell moved before Simmons could react. 22 years of close-quarters combat training against a drunk, corrupt sheriff was no contest. He disarmed Simmons in 2 moves, pinning him against the wall with one arm across his throat. "Where's her body?" Mitchell demanded. Simmons gasped for air. "Canyon, south of Abilene. Mile marker 47. They dumped her there with 3 others." "Where does Antonio Stevens operate from?" "El Paso warehouse, but he moves around, has houses in Las Cruces, Albuquerque, Juarez." "How many men?" 89. Spread across 3 states, but the core group, the enforcers, 23 men. Mitchell loosened his grip slightly. "Names. I want all their names." Simmons rattled off names, addresses, roles within the organization. Mitchell memorized every detail, the same way he'd memorized enemy combatant lists in Afghanistan. Roberto Bartlett was Antonio's second-in-command. Guillermo Dean ran the meth labs. Christoph Robbins handled distribution. Each name was another target, another score to settle. When Simmons finished, he looked at Mitchell with something like resignation. "You're going to kill them all, aren't you?" "Every single one. Then kill me too. Make it quick. I don't want to burn." Mitchell considered him for a long moment. Tom Simmons had been a good man once. They'd shared beers, watched football, talked about their daughters' futures. But that man was gone, replaced by a coward who'd sold his soul for money and let an innocent girl die to protect his own children. "I was never here," Mitchell said quietly. "You got drunk, turned on the stove, passed out. The electrical short did the rest." Tragic accident. Recognition and relief flashed across Simmons' face. Then Mitchell's fist connected with his temple, and the sheriff crumbled. Mitchell dragged the unconscious man back to his recliner, positioned him naturally, placed the empty bourbon bottle in his hand. The gas continued to fill the kitchen. The frayed wires in the panel sparked. He was 300 yards away when the house exploded into flame. The sound carried across the desert like thunder. Mitchell didn't look back. He just kept walking, Simmons' information burning in his mind as bright as the fire consuming the evidence. By morning, the volunteer fire department would find a body in the ashes. The investigation would conclude that Sheriff Tom Simmons died of smoke inhalation after a tragic accident involving alcohol and a gas stove. No one would question it. No one would care enough to dig deeper. Day one was complete. 88 targets remained. Hugo Fowler arrived first, driving up in a rented pickup truck at 6 a.m. with a duffel bag that clinked with the unmistakable sound of weapons. He was a stocky man in his mid-30s, with a shaved head and a scar running from his left eye to his jaw, a gift from an IED in Fallujah that should have killed him. He'd been Mitchell's demolitions expert for 8 years. They didn't shake hands. Hugo just pulled Mitchell into a brief, hard embrace. "I'm sorry, brother." "I know." Kelvin Parsons arrived 2 hours later. Tall and lean with dark skin and calculating eyes, he'd been Mitchell's sniper in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. 387 confirmed kills across a 10-year career. He looked at the television, still showing news footage of the sheriff's house fire, and said only, "One down." "One down," Mitchell confirmed. By noon, Eric Shields had arrived from Fort Huachuca with 2 laptops, a satellite phone, and enough electronic surveillance equipment to outfit a CIA field office. He was the youngest of the team at 28, with a genius-level IQ and a talent for hacking that had gotten him recruited straight from MIT into Army intelligence. "I've already started building profiles," Eric said, spreading files across Mitchell's dining room table. "Antonio Stevens is the key. Take him out, and the organization fractures. But he's paranoid. 3 different homes, never sleeps in the same place twice, travels with 6 bodyguards minimum. Ronnie showed up that evening, limping slightly, but carrying a rifle case and a bag of medical supplies. He was in his early 40s, the oldest of the group, with gray streaking his close-cropped hair. He'd saved Mitchell's life twice in Kandahar, carrying him 3 miles through hostile territory with a bullet in his own leg. "Knees at 80%, Ronnie said. "Good enough for this." Dwayne Kennedy was last, arriving after midnight, still in his travel uniform. He was a medic first, a warrior second, but Mitchell had seen him kill 15 Taliban fighters with a pistol and a knife when they'd overrun his position. He took one look at Mitchell's face and said, "We're really doing this." It wasn't a question. "We're really doing this," Mitchell confirmed. "But I need all of you to understand what this means. We're going off book. Way off book. We're going to hunt down and kill 88 cartel members. We're going to do it quietly, efficiently, and without leaving evidence. And when it's done, we're going to disappear and pretend this never happened." "Sounds like Tuesday," Hugo said. Eric pulled up a map on his laptop. "I've identified 23 high-value targets. These are Antonio's enforcers, the ones who do the kidnapping, the killing, the torture. I've got addresses, vehicles, routines. We start with them." "No," Mitchell said. "We start with the ones who killed Paige. The man with the gold chains, the older man with gray hair, the camera operator. I want them first. Eric's fingers flew across the keyboard. The man with the chains is Guillermo Dean. Age 32, 6 priors for assault, suspected in at least 14 murders. He runs the cartel's enforcement operations out of a compound in Las Cruces. The older man is Christoph Robbins, 54, former Mexican federal police before he went dirty. Handles intelligence and security. The camera operator is harder to identify, but based on the video metadata and some other factors, I'm 90% sure it's Toby Bray, a low-level soldier who specializes in tech and propaganda. Mitchell studied the photographs Eric had pulled up. Guillermo Dean looked exactly as he had in the video. Arrogant, cruel, enjoying his work. Christoph Robbins had cold eyes and a military bearing. Toby Bray was younger, maybe 25, with the kind of face that blended into crowds. Where are they now? Dean is at his compound. Robbins moves between El Paso and Juarez. Bray is in Albuquerque at a safe house. Eric zoomed in on satellite imagery. But here's the thing. They're expecting retaliation. Security's been doubled since the video went viral. They know they crossed the line. Good, Kelvin said. Let them worry. Fear makes people sloppy. Dwayne unpacked his medical supplies, arranging them with practiced efficiency. We need to be smart about this. 88 targets in 60 days is aggressive. That's more than one per day, assuming we work continuously. We don't need 60 days, Mitchell said. We need 30, 40 at most. Because after that, federal attention gets too intense. Right now, they think Page's murder was an isolated incident. When cartel members start dying, the FBI, DEA, and ATF will all mobilize. We need to move fast. Hugo cracked his knuckles. Then let's not waste time talking. Who do we hit first? Mitchell pulled out the notebook where he'd written everything Simmons had told him. Toby Bray in Albuquerque. He's the weakest link. Young, inexperienced, overconfident because he thinks his tech skills make him untouchable. We take him, we get his computer, we get access to their entire communication network. Eric, can you crack cartel encryption? If it's digital, I can crack it. Then Bray dies tomorrow night. Kelvin, you're primary. Make it look like a robbery gone wrong. Hugo, you're on explosives. Rig his car in case he runs. Eric, you're on surveillance. Ronnie and Dwayne, you're backup and extraction. I'll coordinate from here. The team nodded. No questions, no hesitation. They'd done this kind of operation 100 times in a dozen countries. The only difference was this time, it wasn't sanctioned by the United States government. This time it was personal. Toby Bray lived in a 4th-floor apartment in a converted warehouse in downtown Albuquerque. Eric had hacked the building's security cameras within an hour, giving them a full layout and routine. Bray worked from home, rarely leaving except to pick up food or meet his girlfriend, Ruth Moss, a waitress at a nearby diner. Ruth Moss is clean, Eric reported. No criminal record, no cartel connections. She doesn't know what Bray does. Thinks he's a freelance web designer. We don't touch her, Mitchell said. She's not part of this. They waited until Ruth left for a night shift, then moved in. Kelvin took position on a roof across the street with his rifle. Hugo planted charges on Bray's motorcycle in the parking garage. Eric looped the security camera feeds. Ronnie and Dwayne covered the building exits. Mitchell went in alone. The apartment building had minimal security, a single lock on the front door, easily bypassed. Mitchell climbed the stairs to the 4th floor, moving silently in soft-soled shoes. Apartment 4C had light bleeding from under the door and the sound of music playing inside. Mitchell knocked. Ruth, you forget something? Bray's voice called out. Mitchell knocked again. The door opened 6 inches, held by a chain. Toby Bray's face appeared in the gap, his expression shifting from confusion to recognition to fear in the space of a heartbeat. You. Mitchell kicked the door. The chain snapped. Bray stumbled backward, reaching for something on the coffee table. A pistol, but Mitchell was faster. He slammed Bray against the wall, one hand crushing his throat. The video, Mitchell said quietly. You filmed it. Bray's eyes bulged. I didn't. They made me. You smiled. I watched the video 20 times. When they lit the match, you smiled. Please, please, I'll tell you anything. I'll help you find them. Mitchell dragged him to the computer setup in the corner. 3 monitors, a high-end gaming rig, external drives stacked neatly. Passwords. All of them. Now, Bray rattled off passwords, access codes, encryption keys. His fingers shook as he typed, unlocking folders full of cartel communications, financial records, operation details. Eric would have a field day with this. Where's her body? Mitchell asked. Canyon south of Abilene. Mile marker 47. They buried her with 3 other girls. Shallow graves. Mitchell had already known this from Simmons, but the confirmation felt like a knife twisting in his gut. Who else was there? At the execution? Guillermo Dean. He planned it. Christoph Robbins supervised. Antonio Stevens watched on video call. There were 4 other guys, muscle enforcers. I don't know all their names. Then you're not useful anymore. Bray's bladder let go. Wait, I can help you. I have access to everything. I can tell you where they're going to be, when they're vulnerable, where they keep their money. Mitchell looked at this pathetic creature who'd filmed his daughter's murder for cartel propaganda, who'd smiled while she burned, who now begged for mercy he didn't deserve. My daughter begged too, Mitchell said. Did you listen? He didn't wait for an answer. 1 shot, silenced through the forehead. Bray collapsed onto his keyboard, blood pooling on the desk. Mitchell pulled out a USB drive and began copying files. Everything, communications, financial records, addresses, phone numbers, operational security protocols. The cartel's entire digital infrastructure laid bare. His earpiece crackled. Clean shot confirmed, Kelvin reported. Target neutralized. Copy that. Eric, how much time do I need? 10 minutes for a full dump. But local PD is responding to a noise complaint 2 blocks away. We need to move. Mitchell glanced at Bray's body. He pulled off the gold chain the kid wore. Expensive, flashy, probably a gift from the cartel. Then he turned to the safe in the corner. Bray had helpfully provided the combination. Inside was cash, drugs, and a ledger of payments. Mitchell took the cash, $40,000, and left the drugs. He wanted this to look like a robbery. A junkie breaking in, things getting violent, Bray fighting back and losing. The police wouldn't look too hard at a dead, low-level criminal. He was out in 8 minutes, taking the stairs to the roof instead of the lobby. Ronnie met him with a rope. They rappelled down the back of the building and melted into the alley. By the time police arrived, they were 3 blocks away in a stolen van, Eric already accessing Bray's files from his laptop. Jesus Christ, Eric muttered. This is everything. Communication logs, payment schedules, safe house locations, even offshore bank accounts. This kid was their entire IT department. Can you track Antonio Stevens? Mitchell asked. Not yet, but give me a few hours. He uses burner phones, but they're all linked through a central server that Bray managed. I can ping the server, triangulate the phones, and narrow down his location. Hugo drove them to a motel outside Santa Fe. They rented 6 rooms under fake names, paying cash. Inside one room, they spread out maps and files, building a comprehensive picture of the Stevens cartel's operations. 88 members divided into cells, 23 enforcers who did the wet work, 15 distributors, 22 production workers in the meth labs, 12 financial operators, 8 scouts and recruiters, and 8 high-level managers, including Antonio Stevens and Roberto Bartlett. We're going to need to be surgical about this, Dwayne said. Hit them hard, hit them fast, but don't leave patterns. The moment the feds connect the dots, we're done. Kelvin cleaned his rifle. So we vary the methods. Some look like accidents. Some look like rival cartels. Some look like internal disputes. Keep everyone guessing. And we isolate Antonio, Mitchell added. Kill his enforcers, cut off his communications, destroy his production facilities. Make him paranoid. Make him vulnerable. Eric's laptop pinged. Got him. Antonio Stevens is currently at a ranch outside Las Cruces, but he's moving tomorrow to El Paso. After that, the pattern gets less clear. Mitchell studied the satellite imagery of the Las Cruces ranch. Security fences, guard towers, at least a dozen men visible on thermal imaging. Not yet. We're not ready for a direct assault. We need to bleed him first. Take out his key people one by one until he's isolated. Guillermo Dean is still in Las Cruces, Hugo noted, at his compound 3 miles from Antonio's ranch. The man with the gold chains. The man who'd poured gasoline on Paige. Mitchell felt cold fury settle over him like a familiar coat. Then that's our next target. But we do it smart. We make him suffer first. Over the next 4 hours, they planned Guillermo Dean's downfall with military precision. It would be complex, personal, and deeply satisfying. And it would send a message to Antonio Stevens that his time was running out. Guillermo Dean's compound was a fortress. 8-foot walls, armed guards, security cameras, and attack dogs. He'd built it with drug money, a monument to his own cruelty. Eric's surveillance showed he kept a rotation of 6 guards, 3 inside the house and 3 patrolling the perimeter. But every fortress has a weakness. Dean's weakness was his girlfriend, Jillian Tompkins, a 23-year-old exotic dancer from Albuquerque. She drove to his compound every Friday night, staying until Sunday morning. The guards knew her car, waved her through without checking. It was Thursday night. Eric had hacked Jillian's phone and social media accounts. She was clean, no knowledge of Dean's operations, no involvement in cartel business. Just a naive girl who thought her boyfriend was a successful businessman. We use her car, Hugo said. Classic Trojan horse. She drives in, we're already inside. Won't work? Ronnie countered. The guard might not search her car, but they'll see if someone else is driving it. And if we take Jillian hostage, that makes us no better than them. Mitchell agreed. We don't touch civilians. We find another way. Eric smiled. Or we make her car go in without her driving it. He explained his plan. They'd steal Jillian's car Thursday night while she was at work, install remote driving capability, and send it through the gate on autopilot Friday evening. By the time the guards realized something was wrong, Hugo's explosives would detonate. It was risky, technical, and completely insane. I love it, Hugo said. They executed the plan with clockwork precision. Eric bypassed Jillian's car alarm, installed the remote system, and had the vehicle back in her parking spot before her shift ended. She'd never know it had been modified. Friday evening, they watched from a hill overlooking Dean's compound as Jillian's car approached the gate. The guards waved it through without hesitation. The car rolled up the driveway toward the house. Dean came outside, probably wondering why Jillian wasn't getting out. He walked down the steps toward the car. Hugo pressed the detonator. The explosion was massive. The car erupted in a fireball that consumed Dean, 3 guards, and most of the front of the house. Secondary explosions followed as fuel tanks and ammunition stores ignited. Kelvin took out the remaining guards with precise shots from his position. Within 90 seconds, silence fell over the compound, broken only by crackling flames. Go, Mitchell ordered. They moved in fast, Ronnie and Dwayne clearing the burning structure room by room. Most of the cartel members inside were already dead from the explosion or smoke. Those who weren't wished they were. Mitchell found Guillermo Dean in the rubble of what had been his living room. He was still alive, barely, his body crushed beneath a fallen beam, his skin blackened by burns. Dean's eyes focused on Mitchell. Recognition flickered. You, my daughter begged you to stop, Mitchell said, kneeling beside the dying man. She begged you not to burn her. Did you listen? Dean tried to speak, but only blood came out. I want you to know something before you die, Mitchell continued. Everyone you love is going to join you. Your brother, your cousin, your friends, every single person in the Stevens cartel. I'm going to erase you from existence. And when I'm done, no one will remember your name. He took the gold chain from Bray's murder and draped it across Dean's chest. Then he stood and walked away, leaving the man to die in the flames. They were gone before emergency services arrived. Eric had already wiped the security footage. The official report would say a meth lab inside the compound exploded, killing everyone inside. Just another cartel operation gone wrong. 2 targets down, 86 to go. But as they drove away from the burning compound, Eric's laptop pinged with an alert. He stared at the screen, his face going pale. We have a problem, he said. A big one. What kind of problem? Mitchell asked. Federal kind. An FBI agent has been tracking the Stevens cartel for 3 years. Her name is Ruth Moss. Mitchell felt ice in his veins. Ruth Moss? Toby Bray's girlfriend. Not his girlfriend. His handler. She's deep undercover, has been feeding information to a federal task force. And according to these messages I'm seeing in the cartel system, she's been compromised. Antonio Stevens knows she's FBI. He's planning to kill her tomorrow night. The mission had just gotten infinitely more complicated. Ruth Moss had spent 3 years building her cover as a waitress dating a low-level cartel tech guy. 3 years of gathering evidence, recording conversations, documenting crimes. She'd been weeks away from testifying before a grand jury that would take down the entire Stevens organization. Now that was all in jeopardy because Mitchell's team had killed Toby Bray. She doesn't know Bray is dead, Eric explained, scrolling through intercepted messages. The cartel found out about her yesterday through a compromised FBI database. They're planning to grab her during her shift tomorrow, torture her for information, then kill her. We can't let that happen, Dwayne said. Mitchell agreed, but this complicated everything. If we save her, she'll know we're involved. She'll know civilians are running an off-book operation against the cartel. That puts us all at risk. So we let her die? Ronnie's voice was sharp. She's a federal agent doing her job. We can't abandon her. I'm not saying we abandon her. I'm saying we need to be smart about this. Mitchell thought through the angles. Eric, can you contact her without revealing who we are? Maybe. She has a secure email she uses to contact her handler. I could send her a warning, tell her to extract immediately. Do it. Tell her she's been compromised, give her a time and place for emergency extraction. Make it look like it's coming from her own agency. Eric's fingers flew across the keyboard. 10 minutes later, the email was sent through enough proxies and encryption layers that even the NSA would have trouble tracing it. They waited. Ruth's response came an hour later. How do I know this is real? Verification code? She's smart, Hugo noted, not taking anything at face value. Eric sent her a code that would confirm the message came from someone with access to FBI internal systems. Ruth went quiet for 20 minutes, probably verifying the code through her own channels. Her next message was terse. Extraction confirmed. Location and time received. Who are you? Eric didn't reply. Better to let her think it was her own agency looking out for her. But Mitchell had a different idea. Tell her about Toby Bray. Tell her he's dead, killed in what looked like a robbery. Tell her his computers were wiped clean, no evidence left behind. That'll make her suspicious, Kelvin said. Good. Let her be suspicious. Because after tomorrow, we're going to need her. Eric sent the message. Ruth's response was immediate. You're not FBI. Who the hell are you? Mitchell leaned over Eric's shoulder and typed himself, friends. The cartel killed an innocent girl. We're making them pay. You have information we need. Help us, and we'll help you take down Antonio Stevens. A long pause. Then, this is illegal. Mitchell typed, yes. Another pause. I should arrest you. You should survive tomorrow night. After that, we can discuss legalities. Ruth didn't respond again. But the next morning, Eric's surveillance showed her packing a bag and moving to a safe house location they'd suggested. A motel far from her usual haunts, registered under a fake name. She's going along with it, Eric confirmed. Smart girl. We still need to protect her, Mitchell said. The cartel will come looking. Antonio Stevens doesn't leave loose ends. They set up a perimeter around Ruth's motel, rotating watches, monitoring all approaches. Sure enough, at 3 a.m., a black SUV pulled into the parking lot. 4 men got out, checking weapons. Kelvin took position on a nearby roof. I have clean shots on all 4. Say the word. Mitchell watched through binoculars. These were cartel enforcers, professionals, heavily armed, moving with military precision. Take them. For shots. For bodies dropped. Kelvin's accuracy was supernatural. Ronnie and Dwayne moved in to secure the scene, dragging bodies into the SUV and driving it to an industrial area where Hugo had prepared a solution. Thermite charges that would reduce the vehicle and its contents to slag and ash. Ruth Moss watched from her motel window, and Mitchell knew she'd seen everything. When he knocked on her door 30 minutes later, she opened it with her service weapon drawn. Hands where I can see them. Mitchell complied, showing empty palms. Agent Moss, we need to talk. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and auburn hair pulled back in a ponytail. You just killed 4 men in front of me. For men who came to kill you. That doesn't make it legal. No, it doesn't. Mitchell met her gaze steadily. My name is Mitchell Freeman. The cartel killed my daughter 2 weeks ago. They burned her alive on Facebook Live while thousands watched. Now I'm killing them back. All of them. Recognition flickered in Ruth's eyes. I saw that video. I'm sorry, but this isn't how justice works. Justice? Mitchell laughed bitterly. Your task force has been investigating for 3 years. How many arrests? These things take time. My daughter didn't have time. The 3 other girls they buried with her didn't have time. How many more people have to die while you gather evidence? Ruth's gun lowered slightly. What do you want from me? Information. You've been inside for 3 years. You know their operations, their personnel, their vulnerabilities. Help us take them down. I'm a federal agent. I can't just. You're a compromised federal agent, Mitchell interrupted. Your cover is blown. Your task force is probably being dismantled as we speak because there's a leak in the FBI. You can either help us finish this, or you can watch from the sidelines while more people die. Ruth was quiet for a long moment. Then she holstered her weapon. Show me what you have. They spread out Eric's files. Everything taken from Toby Bray's computers, everything Simmons had revealed before his death, everything they'd learned from surveillance. Ruth's eyes widened as she absorbed the scope of their intelligence. This is everything we've been trying to build for 3 years. How did you get this? We asked nicely, Hugo said from the doorway. Ruth looked at Mitchell. You're going to kill them all, aren't you? All 86 remaining members. Yes. And you want me to help you commit mass murder. I want you to help me eliminate a terrorist organization that operates with impunity on American soil. You can call it murder if you want. I call it war. Ruth walked to the window, staring out at the parking lot where 4 men had died trying to kill her. Mitchell could see her wrestling with the decision, weighing her oath as a federal agent against the reality that the system had failed. Finally, she turned back. I have conditions. Name them. No civilian casualties. No collateral damage. We do this clean. Agreed. And when it's over, when Antonio Stevens and his organization are gone, you turn yourselves in. You face justice for what you've done. Mitchell considered this. He'd known from the start that this would probably end with prison or death, but hearing it stated so bluntly made it real. Agreed, but only after they're all gone. Ruth nodded slowly. Then I'll help you. God help us both. Over the next 6 hours, Ruth Moss briefed them on everything she knew about the Stevens cartel. She confirmed most of Eric's intelligence and added crucial details about the organization's hierarchy, internal politics, and operational security. Antonio Stevens was paranoid, moving between locations daily, trusting only his inner circle. Roberto Bartlett, his second-in-command, handled day-to-day operations and was the more accessible target. The cartel's enforcement arm had been effectively decapitated with the deaths of Tom Simmons, Toby Bray, and Guillermo Dean. But 20 other enforcers remained, scattered across 3 states. Antonio will be expecting you now, Ruth warned. He'll know that the deaths weren't coincidental. He'll fortify his positions, increase security, maybe even go into hiding. Good, Mitchell said. Let him hide. We'll find him. You're talking about waging a war against an organization with hundreds of millions in resources and connections to Mexican cartels, corrupt officials, and criminal networks across multiple countries. You have 6 people. 6 people who are really good at killing, Kelvin said matter-of-factly. Ruth looked at these men, warriors all, hardened by years of combat, united by grief and purpose. She saw something in their eyes that made her believe they might actually succeed. Antonio has a son, she said quietly. Freddie Joseph Stevens. He's 8 years old. Lives with Antonio's ex-wife in El Paso. The cartel keeps him far away from operations. He's innocent. Mitchell's jaw tightened. We don't hurt children. Ever. I needed to hear you say that. Ruth pulled out her phone. I have a contact at the DEA, someone I trust completely. If I feed her information anonymously, she can position federal assets to intercept cartel shipments, freeze bank accounts, arrest low-level members. It'll look like coincidental law enforcement, not a targeted campaign. Do it, Mitchell agreed. Anything that weakens them helps us. They worked through the night, building a comprehensive battle plan. The next 2 weeks would be critical. They'd hit the cartel's meth labs in New Mexico, eliminate key distributors in Arizona, and work their way up the chain to Roberto Bartlett and finally Antonio Stevens. As dawn broke, Ruth stood to leave. I'm going back to my handler. Tell them I need witness protection. It'll buy us time before they start asking questions about why cartel members keep dying. Stay safe, Mitchell said. She paused at the door. Your daughter. What was her name? Paige. I'll make sure she's remembered in the official report. When this is over, when the trials happen, if they happen, her name will be there. She won't be forgotten. Mitchell felt something crack in his chest. Thank you. After Ruth left, the team sat in silence, each man processing what came next. They'd crossed a line tonight, recruiting a federal agent into their vigilante war. There was no going back now. Hugo broke the silence. So we're really doing this. Wiping out an entire cartel in 4 weeks. 3 weeks, Mitchell corrected. We need 1 week buffer in case things go sideways. Things always go sideways, Dwayne noted. Then we improvise. Mitchell stood, looking at each of his brothers in arms. You all know what this means. We're criminals now. When this is over, we face court-martial, federal prosecution, probably life in prison. So I'm giving everyone one chance to walk away. No judgment, no questions. You can leave right now and pretend you were never here. No one moved. We're with you, Ronnie said simply. To the end. The others nodded. These men had followed Mitchell through hell before. They'd do it again. Then let's get to work, Mitchell said. We have 86 targets in 20 days. Time to make every second count. The first meth lab went down on a Tuesday night. It was a mobile operation hidden in a trailer park outside Alamogordo, New Mexico, run by 3 cartel chemists and guarded by 4 enforcers. Hugo and Ronnie went in first, using thermal imaging to locate all 7 targets. The chemists were working, cooking a batch that would hit the streets by Friday. The guards were playing cards, confident in their isolation. They never heard the team coming. Kelvin took out 2 guards with suppressed shots from 200 yards. Hugo breached the trailer and eliminated the 3rd guard with a knife. The 4th got his weapon up, but Dwayne put 2 round center mass before he could fire. The chemists tried to run. Ronnie cut them off, cable tying their hands. Mitchell entered last, surveying the operation. Lab equipment worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Enough meth to supply half of New Mexico, and 3 terrified men who knew exactly what was coming. Where's Roberto Bartlett? Mitchell asked. The head chemist, a man in his 50s named Ross Dow, spat at Mitchell's feet. I tell you nothing. Mitchell pulled out his combat knife. Wrong answer. 10 minutes later, he had 3 addresses, 2 phone numbers, and a detailed breakdown of the cartel's distribution network. Ross Dow had been very cooperative once Mitchell started on his partner's fingers. They rigged the lab with explosives and left. The trailer erupted in a fireball visible for miles, destroying evidence and sending a message. The Stevens cartel was under attack. Over the next 10 days, they hit 6 more labs, a distribution hub in Phoenix, and a money laundering operation in Tucson. Each target yielded more information, more names, more pieces of the puzzle. The cartel's communications lit up with panic. Eric monitored it all, watching as Antonio Stevens tried to understand who was targeting him. Federal raid? Rival cartel? Internal betrayal? He never considered that a father with 5 rangers might be systematically dismantling his empire. Ruth fed information to her DEA contact, timing federal raids to coincide with their attacks. The resulting chaos made it impossible for anyone to see the pattern. The FBI thought they were winning. The cartel thought they were under siege from law enforcement. No one suspected the truth. They lost 23 more cartel members in those 10 days. Some died in raids. Some died in accidents. Some simply disappeared, buried in the desert where no one would ever find them. Mitchell kept a tally in his notebook. Each name crossed off brought him closer to justice, closer to peace, closer to the moment when he could stand at Paige's grave and tell her it was finished. But Antonio Stevens remained elusive. Ruth's intelligence put him in 4 different locations over 10 days, never staying long enough to mount an assault. He traveled with 8 bodyguards now, moving in armored vehicles, staying in fortified compounds. He knows someone's coming for him, Ruth said during one of their secure video calls. He's scared. Good, Mitchell replied. Fear makes people make mistakes. The mistake came on day 16. Roberto Bartlett, Antonio's second-in-command, decided to consolidate operations. He called a meeting of all remaining cartel leadership, 14 people total, at a ranch outside Juarez. Supposedly impenetrable, protected by Mexican federals on the cartel payroll. Eric intercepted the communications. This is it. This is our chance to take out the entire leadership in one strike. Except it's in Mexico, Dwayne pointed out. We have no authority there. If we get caught, it's an international incident. Then we don't get caught, Mitchell said. They spent 3 days planning the assault. The ranch was a fortress, but every fortress had a weak point. In this case, it was the water supply. The ranch drew from a well that fed into the main house. Poison, Hugo suggested. Not poison, Eric corrected. Sedatives. We lace the water supply, wait for them to pass out, then move in and finish it. It was risky. The sedatives might not work fast enough. Someone might notice the taste. A dozen things could go wrong, but it was the best chance they'd get. They crossed into Mexico illegally, using back roads Eric had mapped. The ranch sat isolated in the desert, visible only from the air. Kelvin found a position on a nearby ridge. Hugo and Ronnie approached the well under cover of darkness, using night vision. The sedative compound Eric had prepared was tasteless, odorless, and fast-acting. Within 20 minutes of entering the water supply, everyone in the house would be unconscious. They waited 2 hours. Then Hugo radioed. Movement stopped. Thermal shows everyone down. They moved in. The guards at the gate were slumped over, drooling. Inside the house, 14 cartel leaders lay unconscious around a conference table where they'd been planning their survival strategy. Roberto Bartlett was among them, his phone still in his hand, mid-text. Mitchell methodically moved through the room, checking faces against his list. 12 of the 14 were on his target list. The other 2 were Mexican officials, corrupt federals who'd been taking cartel money. What about them? Ronnie asked, gesturing to the officials. Mitchell considered for a moment. These men had enabled the cartel, protected murderers, allowed Paige's killers to operate with impunity. But they were government officials, and killing them would cross another line. Cable tie them. Leave them alive. Let their own government deal with them. They executed the 12 cartel members with single shots, clinical and efficient. No torture, no dramatics. Just justice. Roberto Bartlett woke up at the end, groggy from the sedatives. He looked up at Mitchell with bleary eyes. Ooh, who are you? I'm the father of the girl you helped murder, Mitchell said quietly. And I want you to give Antonio a message. What message? Tell him I'm coming. Tell him everyone he loves is going to die. Tell him I'm going to erase him from existence, just like he did to my daughter. Bartlett's eyes widened as consciousness returned. You're him, the Ranger. Antonio's been looking for you. Now he knows where to find me. Mitchell raised his weapon. Wait, I can. The shot echoed across the desert. They were gone before the sun rose, leaving behind a scene that would baffle investigators for years. 14 dead, 2 unconscious officials, no evidence of who'd done it or why. The Mexican government blamed American law enforcement. The American government blamed rival cartels. No one guessed the truth. But Antonio Stevens knew. He'd been on a video call when the sedatives took effect, watching his entire leadership team collapse on screen. He'd seen the cameras go black. He'd heard the shots. And he knew that whoever was coming for him had just eliminated his entire command structure in a single night. According to Eric's surveillance, Antonio fled to a compound deep in the Chihuahuan desert, taking his 8 remaining bodyguards and going completely dark. No phone calls, no internet, no communication except through a single courier who changed routes constantly. He's terrified, Eric said. Look at this metadata. He's moving security cameras every 6 hours, changing passwords daily, sleeping in a different room every night. He's barely eating, probably not sleeping. He's coming apart. Mitchell felt no satisfaction. This wasn't about terror. It was about justice. Can you find him? Working on it. The courier is the key. He uses burner phones, but they all ping the same tower cluster. Give me another week, and I'll have a location. We don't have a week. We've been at this for 19 days. Federal attention is intensifying. Ruth had warned them that morning. The FBI had connected several of the deaths. Not all of them, but enough to raise alarms. A task force was being formed. Surveillance was increasing. They had maybe 5 days before their operation became impossible. Then we force him out, Ronnie suggested. Make him come to us. Al, his son. Freddie, you said Antonio's ex-wife has custody. If we threaten the kid. No, Mitchell cut him off. Absolutely not. We don't use children as bait. Ever. I'm not saying we actually hurt him. Just make Antonio think we might. Scare him into making a mistake. Mitchell shook his head. That makes us monsters. We're not monsters. We're soldiers executing justice. Then what do we do? Dwayne asked. We can't just wait for him to emerge. Every day we wait is another day the feds get closer to us. Eric's laptop chimed. He stared at the screen, then smiled. We don't have to wait. I found him. They gathered around as Eric pulled up satellite imagery. A compound in the middle of nowhere, 60 miles from the nearest town, surrounded by desert. Thermal imaging showed 9 heat signatures, Antonio and his 8 bodyguards. He made a mistake, Eric explained. His courier used the same burner phone twice. I traced it, hacked into local infrastructure, and triangulated his position. He's there, holed up, probably thinking he's safe. When do we move? Hugo asked. Mitchell studied the compound. Fortified, isolated, heavily guarded. It would be a bloodbath. Theirs or the cartel's. But this was the endgame. This was the moment everything had been building toward. Tonight, he said. We finish this tonight. They approached the compound at midnight, moving through the desert like ghosts. Kelvin took position on a dune 800 yards out. Eric monitored security systems from a mobile command post 3 miles away. Hugo carried enough explosives to level a city block. Ronnie and Dwayne flanked Mitchell, weapons ready. 8 guards plus Antonio, Eric confirmed through their earpieces. 6 guards patrolling perimeter, 2 inside with the primary target. Copy that, Mitchell whispered. Kelvin, you're clear to engage. The first guard dropped without a sound. Kelvin shot perfect from nearly half a mile away. The second guard died before he could radio for help. The third made it 2 steps before a bullet found him. But the fourth guard was smarter. He dove for cover and triggered an alarm. The compound erupted in light. Sirens wailed. The remaining guards poured out of the building, weapons firing blindly into the darkness. Plan B, Mitchell ordered. Hugo triggered the charges they'd planted at the compound walls. The explosions tore through the fortifications, creating breaches. Mitchell's team poured through, engaging in close-quarters combat. These weren't untrained thugs. These were professionals, former military, well-equipped and desperate. The firefight was intense. Bullets whined past Mitchell's head. A guard rushed him with a knife. Ronnie put 2 rounds in the man's chest. Dwayne took a hit to his vest, the impact knocking him down. Ronnie dragged him to cover while Mitchell advanced toward the main building. 3 guards tried to stop him. Hugo's grenade scattered them. There was just Mitchell and the building where Antonio Stevens hid. He kicked open the door, clearing corners by instinct. Gunfire erupted from his left. He returned fire, dropping one of Antonio's bodyguards. The second came at him from the right. Hand-to-hand combat, brutal and quick. Mitchell's knife found the man's throat. He climbed the stairs, each step bringing him closer to the man who'd ordered his daughter's death. Music played from somewhere above, old Mexican ballads, oddly peaceful against the sound of battle outside. Antonio Stevens stood in the master bedroom, alone, holding a pistol with a shaking hand. He was younger than Mitchell expected, maybe 35, wearing an expensive suit despite the late hour. His eyes were wild, broken. You're him, Antonio said. The Ranger. Freeman. Yes. You killed my brother. You killed my organization. You destroyed everything I built. Antonio's voice cracked. Why? Why couldn't you just let it go? Mitchell stepped forward. You murdered my daughter. You burned her alive while the world watched. She was a message. Your military killed my brother, so I killed your daughter. That's how this works. That's the rule. Then you understand that I'm here to return a message. Antonio raised his pistol. His hand shook so badly the gun wavered. I have money. Millions. Take it all. Just leave me alive. No. Please. I have a son. Freddie. He's 8 years old. He needs his father. Mitchell thought of Paige. Of her last words. Of the 3 other girls buried with her in that canyon. My daughter needed her father. She begged for mercy. Did you give it to her? Antonio's face crumpled. I wasn't there. I only watched. I didn't do it myself. You ordered it. That makes you guilty. Then kill me. Antonio screamed, dropping the gun. Kill me, but please don't hurt my son. He's innocent. He doesn't know anything about the cartel. Please. Mitchell picked up Antonio's pistol, removed the magazine, cleared the chamber. I don't hurt children. Your son will live. He'll grow up knowing his father was a monster, but he'll live. Relief and despair warred on Antonio's face. Thank you. Thank you. Just make it quick. No, Mitchell said softly. You don't get quick. You get to know what's coming. You get to feel the fear. Just like Paige did. He produced a jerry can from his pack. Gasoline sloshed inside. Antonio's eyes went wide. No, you can't. That's evil. It's justice. Mitchell began pouring gasoline around the room. You burned my daughter alive. Now you get the same courtesy. Please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. Mitchell poured gasoline on Antonio, watching the man who destroyed his world beg for mercy he didn't deserve. My daughter begged too. Did you listen? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So am I. Mitchell struck a match. Antonio Stevens screamed as the flames consumed him. Mitchell watched for exactly 4 minutes and 32 seconds, the same length his daughter had burned in that video. Then he turned and walked away, leaving the compound to burn. Outside, his team waited. Dwayne was on his feet, bruised but functional. All 8 cartel guards were dead. The mission was complete. Target eliminated. Mitchell reported to Colonel Summers via encrypted radio. All objectives achieved. Copy that, Major. Come home. They drove through the desert in silence. Behind them, the compound blazed like a funeral pyre, smoke rising into the starless night. Somewhere in that inferno, Antonio Stevens died the same death he'd inflicted on an innocent girl. It didn't bring Paige back. Nothing would. But it closed a chapter. It balanced the scale. It delivered justice that the law couldn't or wouldn't provide. Mitchell thought about what Ruth Moss had said, that when this was over, they'd face justice too. He was ready. He'd done what needed to be done. Now he'd accept the consequences. But first, he had one more task. Mile marker 47, south of Abilene. A canyon where 4 girls lay in shallow graves. It was time to bring his daughter home. The canyon was desolate, marked only by scattered rocks and the occasional cactus. Mitchell stood at mile marker 47 as the sun rose, his team forming a respectful perimeter while he searched. Ruth Moss had joined them, her FBI credentials giving the recovery official status. She'd arranged for the medical examiner to be standing by, had pulled strings to keep this quiet until the girls could be properly identified and their families notified. It took 3 hours to find the graves. They were shallow, hastily dug, marked only by disturbed earth. Mitchell knew the moment he found Paige's, a glimpse of fabric he recognized, a shirt he'd bought her for her birthday. He fell to his knees. The medical examiner worked with quiet efficiency, treating the remains with dignity they'd been denied in death. Paige and 3 other girls, all between 17 and 20, all victims of the cartel's cruelty. The other girls were identified through dental records. Amanda Hutchins, age 19, missing from El Paso for 6 months. Lorena Brewer, age 18, disappeared from Albuquerque a year ago. Victoria Good, age 17, vanished from Las Cruces 8 months prior. Each had families who'd been searching, hoping, praying for their safe return. Now Mitchell had to watch as those families received the worst news imaginable. But at least they had closure. At least the girls could go home. Ruth supervised the recovery, her federal authority ensuring everything was documented properly. When it was done, she approached Mitchell. "It's over," she said quietly. "Antonio Stevens is dead. The cartel is destroyed. 89 targets eliminated in 23 days. It doesn't feel over. It never does." Ruth paused. "The FBI knows something happened. They're investigating the deaths, all of them. It's only a matter of time before they figure it out. I know. You could run. You and your team. Disappear into the wind. I'll tell them I never saw you." Mitchell looked at Paige's remains being carefully placed in a body bag, treated with more respect in death than she'd received in her final moments. "No, we made a deal. When it was over, we'd face justice. It's over now." Ruth nodded. "Then you'll be arrested within 48 hours. Federal murder charges, conspiracy, vigilante justice. You're looking at life in prison, maybe death penalty, depending on how prosecutors want to play it. I'm aware. Your team doesn't have to go down with you. I can frame it as you acting alone, them following orders they thought were legitimate. No, we made this choice together. We face it together." Hugo, Kelvin, Eric, Ronnie, and Dwayne had gathered nearby. Each nodded when Mitchell looked at them. Brothers to the end. "The families of those girls," Ruth continued. "Amanda, Lorena, Victoria, they deserve to know who brought them home. They deserve to know their daughters didn't die for nothing. Tell them," Mitchell said. "Tell them everything. Make sure Paige's story is told. Make sure everyone knows what the Stevens cartel did and why they're gone now." "I will." They buried Paige 3 days later in a cemetery outside San Angelo, next to her mother Sarah. The service was small. Mitchell's sister Adrienne and her family, a few of Paige's college friends, Colonel Summers in civilian clothes, and the 5 Rangers who'd helped him avenge her death. Ruth Moss attended too, standing at the back, her presence a reminder that justice came in many forms. Mitchell stood at the grave long after everyone else left, one hand on the cold stone that now bore his daughter's name. Paige Freeman, beloved daughter. Her light extinguished too soon, but her memory burns eternal. "I got them, sweetheart," he whispered. "All of them. They'll never hurt anyone again." The wind carried his words away across the Texas plains. 2 days later, FBI agents arrived at his ranch. Mitchell didn't resist. He walked out with his hands visible, submitted to handcuffs, and allowed himself to be led to the waiting vehicles. His team was arrested simultaneously: Hugo in Dallas, Kelvin in Houston, Eric in Austin, Ronnie in San Antonio, Dwayne at Fort Hood. All went quietly, knowing this day would come. The trial took 8 months. Federal prosecutors laid out an overwhelming case: 89 murders, conspiracy, weapons charges, interstate criminal activity, and a host of other offenses. The evidence was circumstantial in places, but damning in its totality. Mitchell's defense attorney argued justification, extreme emotional disturbance, and the failure of the justice system to protect innocent citizens. The jury listened to testimony about Paige's murder, about the cartel's reign of terror, about the corruption that allowed them to operate freely. And then the prosecution called their witnesses, families of the cartel members who died. Not the enforcers or lieutenants, but the cousins, brothers, sons who'd been killed in the crossfire. Men who'd been peripherally involved, who'd been trying to get out, who'd had families of their own. Mitchell listened to their testimony with his face carved from stone. He'd known there would be collateral damage. He'd known not every target would be equally guilty. But he'd accepted that cost when he started this war. The jury deliberated for 6 days. They found Mitchell and his team guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced each man to life in prison without possibility of parole. Colonel Summers was court-martialed and discharged, but avoided prison time by claiming ignorance of the operation. Ruth Moss received a formal reprimand for not reporting the vigilante activity, but kept her badge. Mitchell was transferred to a maximum security federal prison in Colorado. His team was scattered across various facilities, separated to prevent them from becoming a security risk together. But in prison, Mitchell found something unexpected: respect. The inmates knew his story. They knew what he'd done and why. Even the hardest criminals, men who'd murdered for profit or pleasure, acknowledged that Mitchell Freeman had done what needed to be done. He didn't care about their respect. He cared only that Paige could rest in peace, knowing justice had been served. 5 years into his sentence, Mitchell received a visitor. Ruth Moss, now a senior FBI agent, sat across from him in the prison visiting room. "I thought you'd want to know," she said. "The investigation into the Stevens cartel has concluded. We traced their operations back 15 years. At least 147 confirmed murders, thousands of lives destroyed by their drugs, millions in stolen money. And officially, the FBI takes credit for dismantling them. Our task force, our investigation, our success." Ruth met his eyes. "But unofficially, everyone knows the truth. You did in 23 days what we couldn't do in 3 years. That's not a comfort. I know, but there's something else." She slid a folder across the table. "After your trial, 8 states passed new legislation addressing cartel violence. Federal funding for anti-trafficking operations tripled, and 3 other cartel organizations voluntarily dissolved rather than risk the same fate as Antonio Stevens." Mitchell opened the folder. Inside were newspaper clippings, legislative summaries, and photographs. One photo showed a memorial in San Angelo, a park dedicated to Paige Freeman and the other girls who'd been murdered by the cartel. "You started something," Ruth continued. "A conversation about how we handle organized crime, about protecting victims, about the failure of the justice system. It's not much, but it's something." Paige didn't want to start a conversation. She wanted to become a doctor. She wanted to save lives. "I know, and I'm sorry." Ruth stood to leave. "But for what it's worth, you saved more lives than you took. Our intelligence suggests that without the Stevens cartel, drug deaths in the Southwest dropped by 40%. Human trafficking cases decreased by 60%. You're a murderer by law, Mitchell, but you're also a hero to people who'll never know your name." After she left, Mitchell sat alone with the folder. He looked at Paige's memorial, at the faces of the other girls, at the legislative changes that had come from their deaths. It didn't make the cell smaller. It didn't shorten his sentence. It didn't bring Paige back. But it meant something. He returned to his cell and added the newspaper clipping to the small collection of photographs he kept. Paige at graduation, Paige fishing, Paige laughing with her mother before the cancer took her. His family, frozen in time, reminding him why he'd done what he'd done. The system had failed them, so he'd become his own justice. And he'd do it again, consequences be damned, if it meant protecting the innocent from those who preyed on the weak. In the end, that's what soldiers did. They stood between civilians and chaos. They made the hard choices so others didn't have to. They bore the cost so others could live in peace. Mitchell Freeman had been a soldier his entire adult life. And in the eyes of the law, he'd become a murderer. But in his own eyes, and in the eyes of the families he'd avenged, he was something else entirely. A father who'd loved his daughter enough to destroy an empire in her name. And that was enough.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.